All right, everybody, go ahead and kick things off today. The voice you are hearing, my name is Steve Ward, also referred to as Stephen Ward. That's what my mother calls me and my wife calls me when I'm in trouble, but I guess that's the given name, so better use it for the title slide here. I am the CMO at Source Defense, and I'm going to be talking to you today about digital skimming. Really has emerged as a new threat to both your customers and your brand. And it's something that has been plaguing us as an industry for a long time, something that I think we're finally coming to grips with the need to address. And luckily, something that in the grand scheme of all things security is very, very easy to tackle with no burden and no additional workload added to your teams. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of an overview on what's going on in the world, and then talk a little bit about, an approach to solving this problem, that should be somewhat of a no-brainer. So if there are any questions, as Scott had mentioned, when we were waiting for the lead-in here, please feel free to ask them inside the chat window, and we'll address them towards the tail end of the session. But ask them as you have them, and let's try to make this something that you walk away with more questions answered than left remaining. All right, so just a quick little overview on who we are as an organization. Source Defense, if you wanted to put us in sort of the security bucket, we'd be in the WebSec or the AppSec realm. Ultimately, what we do is we protect
Sorry, guys. Looks like we might be having a little technical issue. Please be patient. We'll be right back.
services side, we're protecting credentials and account information. In healthcare, it's PHI, and you get the picture. As an organization on the e-commerce end of things, we're currently protecting $20 billion in e-commerce sales. And in the process, we're thwarting more than 8 billion that's billion security and privacy violations each year. And talk about the problem, of privacy concern. Secure the customer out of trying to take I apologize. It looks like I'm dropping some packets. I apologize for that. Coming through okay right now, Scott? You got me?
Yeah, at the moment you're clear.
Okay, all right. Well, hopefully that won't persist. I apologize for that experience, folks. But it's good because you probably don't need to hear me ramble on too much. But anyway, I'm going to keep plugging along, and hopefully we've got no connectivity issues here. When we talk about the shift from brick and mortar to click to order, really ultimately experience is everything. The online experience, oh, hang on, we're going backwards. Experience means everything. The online experience, the demand that your customers have, is one that's incredibly dynamic, right? You're probably managing websites right now, and you're hearing from your marketing teams and your digital teams, we got to have multimedia, we got to have the ability to have chat support, we've got to have the ability to share across social, we've got to have the ability to see what other people think, and sort of get the social proofing, product reviews, things of that nature. And we've got to have personalization. These are all things that lead to conversion, all things that help drive the e-commerce experience, help fuel this as the growing, most important part of, your omni-channel kind of strategy. But ultimately, we got to recognize that one of the most fundamental demands, some of the sort of the baseline demands that our consumers have, or that your customers have, is for data security and privacy. So while they want, a feature-rich experience, they want their data secured and they want their data private. They want it shared only, when they're told, and they want it, protected from any adversarial kind of attacks. To sort of drive that point home, 1 in 5 consumers have said that they will ditch or avoid a brand if they suffer a data breach. And that's not just consumers that are doing business with you. That's consumers who may not consider doing business with you if you suffer a data breach. And 82% of consumers that have been impacted by a breach have resulted and reported a negative impact on their lives. So when we think about the brand experience and the relationship that you're building, and all the effort that you put into making that e-commerce experience super, super rich, we cannot put our customers' data at jeopardy, or it could be devastating to the brand trust that you've developed with them. Why do so many people fear doing business with brands that have had a data breach? Because a lot of bad stuff happens to consumers post breach, right? I've actually been impacted by, I can't even tell you how many countless data breaches, from OPM to one of my cell phone providers that seems to have recurring issues, to a couple of retailers that I've done business with. I've actually suffered some of the effects of identity theft, and it's been incredibly disruptive. This is happening every 22 seconds. Millions of cases of identity theft happening every year, and things like racking up debt, driven by fraud, false income tax returns filed in names, warrants and arrests due to crimes where people have used their names, social media accounts getting hijacked, anxiety, fear, depression, suicidal tendencies and thoughts, even suicide itself. All of these are horrible, 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 bad outcomes that happen on the back of a breach. And when we think about our mission, as business people, and your mission, in retail, primarily, I see the commonality is that we exist to make lives better. And so when we think about the need to protect customer data, I think we have to recognize that the making lives better is sort of completely undercut if we aren't taking all the necessary steps to keep data safe. What's happening in the world of digital skimming, and what's enabling this data theft that leads to this identity theft, is that we've amassed this massive third-party supply chain in the modern website, right? There's a fundamental business need, to have partners plugged into our websites, to support all of the capabilities that I mentioned at the top end of of the discussion, right? And so we've got widgets, and we've got dynamic forms, and we've got partners helping us process orders and payments. We've got social media sharing. We've got video capabilities. We've got advertising, capabilities. We've got site analytics in place. We've got chat bots. I mean, these are, a ton of things that we don't own, right? That we're plugging in, to the modern website, and, using to power that web experience. But these partners, this third-party supply chain, are actually exposing us, to the potential of digital skimming. When we look at, and we provided some numbers here for peer benchmarking, the average website has somewhere between 12 and 25. Number we arrived at was 15. Third parties plugged in, or third or fourth parties plugged into the website. And every the site that we looked at in a recent report had an average of about 12 scripts on the sensitive pages. Now, these are scripts that we don't control, okay? And that therein lies the problem, both with a visibility, security perspective, and with the data privacy concern, right? So we are allowing all of this code to run in every web session, potentially tens of millions of web sessions a year, right? And we are not in control of whether or not it is secure, whether or not it's been compromised, control of its actions, etc. It's all outside our control, and that therein lies the problem with where digital skimming and data leakage occurs. Digital skimming is now happening every single day. Visa late last year basically came out and said 75% of all the cases they investigated in 2022 involved e-commerce, and that the targeting of e-commerce platforms is happening through these third-party partners, through this code integration, and that these threat actors are targeting this supply chain, these third-party service providers, to basically enable this capability to skim data, from the point of entry, right? At the point that your consumers are typing their data into the forms. Also, we've pointed out, and there's an increasing drumbeat of concern around this, that it's not just about an attack, and it's not just about the security side of things. And I said, it's not just data privacy, or I'm sorry, not just data security, it's data privacy. Looked at, 4,500 of the world's largest websites. And this is, actually substantiated by other news that's since come to market. And we found that even in cases where no breach had occurred, there are activities happening, and there is, the capability in the code, right, that violates data privacy mandates such as GDPR or the California Protection Act, or you name it, right? And what we looked at is, what is the capability of this code, right? In a benign form, right? No attack, no adversary involved. And we found 49% of the code had the ability to retrieve form input. 49% of the code had the ability to listen to button clicks. A good portion of the code had the ability to modify forms and listen for form submissions and listen for input changes. And so, if we don't control the capability of our partners' code, right, and understand what they're doing, we leave ourselves blind to both, a data privacy compliance violation, where customer data is taken and utilized, unknowing to us, outside of your, requirements to control that data, and then also, the ability for, the adversary to piggyback into this code, to exfiltrate data. Two really, big examples. A report from Wired last year, with 100,000 websites that they looked at, were effectively, basically conducting key logging, and then this whole class action stir that's occurring with Meta's Pixel. And this is a case where, we've seen this with some of our healthcare clients. There's an issue with the sharing of PHI, private health information, unknowingly, because the Meta Pixel was actually plugged in to the website. So when we talk about the attack end of the world, it's important to understand that the vast majority of organizations are still susceptible to this type of attack. And here's why. We've put a lot of emphasis on controlling data at the point of transit and data at the point of rest, right? Data in transit, data at rest. And we've taken a great means to harden our server infrastructure, batten down the hatches. Don't let our web servers, get broken into to either, establish watering hole attacks or, laterally move throughout the network. But we've kind of left open securing the code that's running inside the browser. And that code can come from our own sources. It could be stuff that we've loaded, and we're running, inside the browser session. It could be things that we've pulled from open source JavaScript libraries. It could be coming from third-party sources, that digital supply chain, again, analytics, advertising, social media, or even fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh parties that are called on. And in a lot of cases, most customers do not understand, most of our customers do not understand that it's not just about the party that you've allowed to reside, in that code base, but they actually call on additional partners in their supply chain. And so there's this ever increasing attack surface that can be utilized. And so all an adversary really has to do is compromise one of these sources. Could be that they compromise a fourth, fifth, nth party, that plugs into your advertising partner, could be that they've compromised your first party script, or that they've, compromised some of the script that you've pulled from open source libraries. And, effectively that enables their ability, to look at and, grab and exfiltrate data at the point of input while it's being entered into those forms. And that's where that whole concept and that notion of like a digital skim comes into play. Literally just pickpocketing from the customer at the point that they're, entering data, sensitive data into your form fields. What source defense exists to do is to really put a bubble around all of that code, effectively become the traffic police, implement policy, whether it be security or data privacy compliance around that code, and to stop the either benign code from overreaching, or to recognize and thwart any changes to that code that would be an indication that an adversary is conducting an attack. We'll talk a little bit more about what we do as we get a little bit further in, but I want to talk a little bit about what's possible, what we've seen, the types of attacks that are out there. Obviously I'm focused in on the digital skimming side of the conversation, and so we're talking about key logging, recording keystrokes, right, exfiltrating that data. But there's also website defacement that it can occur. In some cases, we've seen redirecting of visitors to websites under the attacker's control. We've seen the ability to add content. So there's a lot to be concerned about, with respect to what a third-party script infected with, malicious code can do, inside the consumer session. Obviously, on the data breach end of things, there's the concern for the individual, which I think we should all have for our consumers, right? The fraud and the bad life impacts that I mentioned earlier. And then obviously there's a tremendous amount of cost that comes with this occurring to your organization, right? Compliance fines, data breach cleanup costs, notification, ongoing credit monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. It's an expensive undertaking to clean up after this mess. And it's something that ultimately, we just don't want to let happen because of the impact to brand trust, when the solution to the problem, is as easy as it is, both cost effective and easy. And just to kind of look at what's going on in the world, I think we're finally getting the wake up call that says this is, big enough of a problem that we have to mandate something be done about it. And PCI, in their changes with 4.0, middle of last year, early last year, has basically said, get moving on trying to close off the gap here in security that enables this digital skimming capability. And so in 6.4.3 and 11.6.1, they provide guidance, best practice guidance right now, but soon to be mandated just about a year from now, that says, you need to maintain an inventory of every single script that's on your web properties. You need to confirm that every script is authorized. You need to ensure the integrity of each script, and alert and block any malicious scripts on your payment pages. They've given some recommendations and some thinking in terms of ways to approach it. That's not for this conversation. I'm not going to go deep into sort of compare and contrast. They mentioned CSP, they mentioned SRI. These are things that we've had source defense customers attempt to implement on their own. Sort of a massive undertaking, not really getting to the end of job in terms of what they really want, which is that secure outcome. And so I think we have a proposition that says, let us take the load off your shoulders as you try and meet the PCI mandate. Again, because it's something easy, cost effective, and fast to implement, and we can make this a reality for you now, and not have you wait until this is the stick mandating this happen as part of your PCI compliance audit. Get this out of the way, because you're going to have a lot of other things to worry about writ large with respect to the changes in PCI 4.0. One of the things that I would point out in terms of the assurance side of things is this isn't something that can be done with a code review process. We have a very, very large client out of the UK. multinational, multi-billion-dollar organization. They've got dozens of web properties. They have hundreds of partners that they work with, and they're seeing close to 10,000 changes a year in the script that their partners are serving, into the web experience. JavaScript and the script that these third parties are running, highly dynamic. A lot of times, served up specific to the individual based on, the session. Thousands of changes. We can't go through code review. The pace of change, the need for marketing to put new things on the website, digital, put new things on the website, doesn't make that whole great. We'll just go through security code review with our partners, check that box and move along. Doesn't really make that, a tenable kind of solution. So, all right, let's talk about what Source Defense does. I mentioned multiple times, fast, easy, and no burden. That really is, the approach that we try and take with the world, is to make this something that you can get out of the way so that you can go focus on the 250 other priorities that you have as security people. And so let's talk a little bit about what it does and how it works. Quick primer, not meant to be, sort of technical deep dive, but basically we've got two capabilities. We've got a detection solution and we've got a protection solution or a preventative solution right out of the gates, right? The detection side of things is where some customers will start. It'll give them visibility that they don't currently have. If they need to prioritize the conversation inside the organization, this is usually a good way to get that conversation moving. There's no deployment necessary, so there's absolutely no interruption whatsoever. It's an outside looking in scan of your web properties. It does check the box on PCI's requirement for inventorying of all scripts. We can definitely give you a look at everybody, both from the direct relationship as well as the fourth, fifth downstream partner piece that I was talking about, from the outside looking in. It does enable the cataloging of sensitive data, and we can monitor and alert on incidents. In a lot of cases, though, you're probably dealing with too many alerts and too much to deal with, and you don't want to add additional burden into the security operations side of things. We hear that, and that's where our preventative solution, really is, the sort of way to go. It's deployed really as just a few lines of code. It can be up and running within a couple of weeks. Effectively, what we do is inboxing JavaScript on, from all these partners, and we're controlling behaviors. We allow you to implement policy-based rules. We provide recommendations on policies based upon what we've seen. It's protection first. There's no alerts to monitor or respond to. Data leakage automatically thwarted. We won't let the partners overreach, and then the data theft side of things stopped as well, because we're not allowing data to traverse from our sandbox that shouldn't. What we do typically becomes something that is enjoyed across the organization. Doesn't happen a lot, where a security solution that you put in place is actually something that's enjoyed by your business partners, but in our case, that is actually the case. What we find is digital marketing, can both protect the brand reputation, which is ultimately what we're talking about, when we think about the duty of care to the customer, as well as protect profit margin, from the impact of security breaches and data privacy leaks. More importantly to their end of things, they get complete control over what happens where and when. So we don't have, we've seen in some, client environments before we show up, they have these like script committees and script review processes that happen, and it slows down the pace of business. In this particular case, when we're involved, digital and marketing control what goes on the website when, and security and compliance get the peace of mind of knowing that it's not going to impact either of those two sides of the business. So we can continually allow digital and marketing to enhance the user experience without concern. That full inventory on the site, as a marketing person myself, I've been in environments where we've got scripts sitting, and even the cleanup when I first came in here to Source Defense, partners that were there that we decided to stop doing business with, but their code still remains on our site. Having that ability to clean up, understand what's fully there from an inventory perspective, go through that vetting process, that sort of add, control, delete process becomes important. And for both you and them, you should know that it's really, really easy to deploy. We can deploy with the existing tag manager tools like Adobe, or in most cases, people are using Google Tag Manager, all at a similar cost to other solutions that are already on the site. So, when you think about like marketing or digital's desire to enhance web capability, and they say we want a chat partner, right? We need chat-based support. We actually cost as much as those types of widgets that they would plug in to fuel the website or fuel the web experience. We actually protect the brand in a similar fashion. And so I point that out just to say, in a lot of cases, what we've seen is a sharing of cost across the digital security and compliance budgets, when this is not something that's dealt with as a budgeted kind of item. When we think about, the benefit, to you as security people, it really is, part and parcel to third-party risk management, and, a place in some of the zero trust conversation as well. So I point that out because when we think about third-party risk management and all the conversations that are there, about the supply chain, even as far as now, the whole conversation around SBOM and things of that nature, you really can't be doing third-party risk mitigation without paying attention to the website because there's so many third parties involved. So extend your third-party risk management efforts to one of the most critical, if not the most critical business channels that you have today. Stop giving dozens of partners effectively 100% trust on your website, right? If you're letting 18, 20 partners serve code to tens of millions of consumers, on an annual basis, you're not implementing zero trust. You're seeding trust, to those partners and opening up the door, to really bad outcomes. This closes out WebSec, gets that new attack vector off the table, helps with comprehensive security monitoring goals, and ultimately, this is the one I know you're going to love to hear. It minimizes risk without adding additional strain to your already overworked teams. Most of our clients tell us that they spend fewer than 5 hours a month, in our dashboard. So we're deployed in weeks. We cost far less than a single FTE. And this isn't something that you have to look at and go, well, we've got 9 million priorities, one of which is trying to figure out how to drive more automation because we've got resource constraints. How can we add another tool that adds more concern, in terms of strained resources? That is not source defense. That is not what we do. We're kind of that Ronco, set it and forget it type of solution. From a data privacy compliance perspective, complete visibility into the third-party digital supply chain, knowing who the partners are, verifying their purpose, controlling their action, very, very important, right? Easy and effective way to implement policy controls that are customized to your business needs, allowing for a streamlined assessment when it comes down to your compliance review times, right? Turnkey solution, demonstrates adequate controls, logs and quantifies, yes, we are stopping these policy violations. So, GRC people, completely love it in that sense because it enables, for a much, more streamlined compliance review on an annual basis. And, we address things like GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, CCPA, et cetera, all of which either call for, security controls or data privacy protections to be in place. Ultimately, I look at what we do as a way to bring the units together. Business gets what it needs. Security knows that they got peace of mind without having to worry too much about the management end of things. And GRC gets to know that, we aren't letting the compliance concerns that we have, get out of control and bite us, in the end. When we talk about what we do, easy, fast, really the inexpensive part is something to hammer home as well. Protecting, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue at, tenths of a penny per transaction is ultimately what it looks like. Again, deployed in a matter of days, really a couple of weeks tops, less than 5 hours a month of management, no technical expertise required. And we have support capabilities and ProServe capabilities as needed. That effectively, if you don't have anyone to manage the solution, we can come in and we can provide that capability for you. So we kind of flew through that. The intent was kind of keep this brief, sort of as an overview conversation. Hopefully, I have not been talking through a bunch of packets dropping here on my end, and that you got the gist of what I was trying to say. Scott, please tell me you're out there and you can still hear me, and that I didn't just do that by myself here.
No, Steve, we had you dropped twice in the very beginning. You're good. You're golden.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, I've been having problems with my Starlink. I don't know if it's got anything to do with all the balloons they're shooting down. Hopefully it doesn't. But I'm glad that I got through that without being too agonizing for you guys on the other end. I'd love to open up for some questions. This is meant, as the beginning of a conversation with you guys, meant as, the beginning of, an introduction to the problem to you guys. There's a lot that we can do, to help you kind of get at least visibility, side of the equation solved. And I'd like to invite you, to take advantage of that if you haven't already. One of the things that we typically engage, as a first step on is a full sort of like risk dashboard, where effectively what we come in and do is we show you the third parties, the full inventory, right, of all scripts on your website. We give you an analysis of what we see in terms of both security and compliance concerns. We start reporting back to you on, what might be going on, just as a visibility step in the equation. And if you'd like to, get that moving, it's free of charge and no strings attached kind of thing. You can just drop me a note, super easy. It's steve@sourcedefense.com, and I'd be happy to connect you with somebody to get moving on that. So that's my offer to you today is, we can do at least a risk assessment for you on this, and, get you moving in that conversation. But now with all that said, any questions you guys have, I'd be happy to answer. I think Scott's trying to type me some stuff right now. Okay. All right. What is the process to implement either detect or protect? What I need to do on my end. So on the detect side of things, it really is, as mentioned earlier, an outside looking in kind of view. And ultimately, all we have to do, is just start monitoring for you. It's not anything that has much in the way of anything for you to do. We just got to get an agreement, get moving on that. On protect, as I mentioned, really have tried to design our solution to be as lightweight as possible. We're not talking about, multi-month worth of testing. We're not talking about multi-months worth of deployment. Typically what we do, as I mentioned, in terms of that risk review, is we start there. Once we get moving, then we start, discussing deployment. When we talk about deployment, it's a couple lines of code. Typically what we're doing is we're interacting with your web people and security, simultaneously. We're kind of doing like a, multi-organizational, quick project to get up and running. Scott's got something else coming at me here, so just give me a second. Okay, so question relates to the PCI end of things. Is the current requirement a mandate or best practice? Right now, it's best practice, okay? But one of the things I don't think I mentioned in terms of what's come to light in a lot of the disclosed breaches that are out there, when we look at like the digital skimming, e-skimming, Magecart type of attacks, they typically, because we don't have the visibility into what's going on with these third parties, and because we're not really monitoring, that level of activity because it's outside, the server side controls, the majority of the breaches that get disclosed have been going on for like 6 months to 2 years. These are slow and low, heavily impacting, tens of millions of people get caught up in it. So from my end of things, PCI is basically, with the changes at 4.0 have said, you're going to have to do this. And, thankfully, they've given some runway before it's mandated in order to be compliant. But, I look at it and I say, we all know that, the duty to the customer is to keep them safe. We all want to provide that level of protection. We know this mandate is coming. Waiting for it to be, mandated, I think is a failed kind of strategy. I think, implementation today, again, check it off the list. There's a lot of other things in 4.0 that you're going to be dealing with. Get it out of the way and, have the peace of mind of knowing that waiting didn't result in like a, 6 month to 2 year exposure of all your customers on your website. Okay. What kind of info would I get from a risk report? Again, think of it, in terms of, if I come back to, let me just do this real quick. Go back, let's see. If you think about, let's see if I can do that fast. Give me 1 second. Let's do it like this. If you think about the PCI requirements, an inventory of all scripts on your web properties, you're going to see that in the risk report, okay, or in the risk dashboard. If you look at, the confirmation of authorization, in the case of our risk report, when we're giving you a look at all of the third parties, fourth, et cetera, that are there, that's an opportunity right there for us to work with your teams to look at whether or not, some of the stuff needs to be there. Again, we've had clients that have used this as a discovery process to see that there are things that, maybe were implemented 2-3 years ago still hanging on the website. So, is it authorized? Do we need it? Part of what comes from that, or part of what comes from the conversation on the risk report. The integrity of the script and alerting and blocking. We will tell you if we see potential compliance policy violations, data, PII, being shared with these third or fourth or nth parties. And we will also, let you know if we see any connectivity, to any known bad, malicious, domains, right? Any C2. And so, ultimately, when we think about the risk dashboard that we provide and the information that we give you, it really is, sort of the first step towards this level of PCI, PCI compliance. And again, it really is that visibility component of things that gets the conversation moving, across the organization. Let's see, Scott, I don't know if you're still typing or not. Saw something going on there. Okay, oh, Scott's typing. I'm waiting for Scott to type. Or maybe getting to the tail end of the questions and maybe giving back some 15 minutes to you guys. Okay, I think Scott's saying we're free and clear from the questions that were posed here. So I'm about to give you a little bit of your day back, and hopefully that's something that's of value. I know that you can enjoy, or at least a gap between now and your next meeting. Again, my name is Steve Ward. We'd love to talk to you, get the conversation moving, at least give you some visibility, no strings attached. You can drop me a line, steve@sourcedefense.com, steve@sourcedefense.com. Let's get a handle on this digital skimming concern. Let's get you, oh, hang on, we got one more, hang on, it's coming. One more question, don't leave, this might be the best question yet. So your script's deployed at the server end, I believe. Are there any codes required at the customer browser side? No, there's nothing required on the customer end of things. Effectively, what we're doing is we're acting as a buffer. We're taking all of the script that is running from the third parties, effectively putting them in our own sandbox. So think of it sort of like mirroring the web page. We're controlling what is allowed, in terms of visibility from those third parties, what the script can and can't do. There's nothing that the consumer has to do whatsoever. It's effectively we're controlling and putting a buffer or a bubble around, what's happening when it's being loaded into, into the web section. So no, there's nothing that has to happen on the browser side. Okay. Let's see if there was any other questions came from that. Looks like we're all done on them. All right. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. I hope there was some, enlightenment here. Appreciate you taking some time to listen to me, take some time out of your day to learn about this. Let's get the conversation moving. You're going to have to address this, under PCI soon. Let's get moving now. And, I think you're going to find this is one of those no-brainer, and we never really see these in security, completely easy things to take care of. No reason to leave the risk out there, with that kind of proposition. So we hope to engage with you, and we stand at the ready. And drop me a line if you want to talk, steve@sourcedefense.com. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for your time.